Hello! Today we're going to talk all about Tudor hoods. Now some of these dates are approximates and averages because there are crossovers on dates. Around 1500s to 1520s we see this hood come in, which was called the steeple gable hood. And that's because it points up to the heavens like a steeple on a church. And who made this popular? Well, this Lady Elizabeth of York and this Lady Margaret Beaufort, who was the wife and the mother of King Henry VII. 1520s to 30s, we see a different shape come in, and it's this shape called the box gable hood, and it has a coif underneath, and the veils at the back are two 90-degree sort of pocket veil styles. And here is the back of the box gable hood with the two 90-degree veils. And it was Catherine of Aragon that made this popular. She brought the hood from the Spanish court to England. Between the 1530s and the 60s, we see this hood, this rounded hood come in because Anne Boleyn brought this sensual and sexy hood from the French court, and it was called the French hood. And it actually shows hair now, whereas the previous hood had a coif underneath for modesty. But this is quite sexy. And here she is, Anne Boleyn, who brought this hood from the French court. Moving on from the 1530s, Jane Seymour is now queen, and she brings back the box gable hood. Why? Because she banned everybody from having anything to do or to say about Queen Anne Boleyn. And Jane Seymour seems to have made this fashion her own because she pins one of these back lappets up onto the top of her head. Now, in all my research, I can't find any reason to see why this was. It seems as though it might have just been a fashion, such as one earring or one nose ring today. And if we look at some of the fashion plates and drawings of the time, some of the notary ladies like the Lady Vaux were following her fashion. And here is the Lady Lister, who has hers up too. Now from this time up till about 1600, we see something called the bonne grace. Following on from these lappets being pinned up, this one lappet pins up and goes over the forehead. Here's another sort of ceramic model of it. Now bonne grace is an old French word for good grace, and it seems as though this was sort of done as for a modesty, or even they say sun protection. And here is another style of it. And here is another much later painting of an Elizabethan style dress with a bonne grace. Sort of 1540s we are now. Catherine Howard is a very young queen, and she is wearing what was called the harcelé, which was a sort of a flatter rounded headdress set even further back on the head with a parted hair showing more hair. So far back you had to wear a chin strap with it. And harcelé comes from the old French word for arched shaped metal. Now around the same sort of time and leading up to the mid to late 1500s, Mary Tudor was on the throne, and she is now wearing this flat style hood, and this was called planished flat top hood. I actually really like this one. It looks so glamorous, cupping the head like that. Look at this lady in her beautiful red outfit. And here is Mary Tudor in her planished flat top hood. All this leads to what was called the attifet or attifet, and this was sort of a flat top hood with a point at the front that made your hair go up into a heart shape. And it was Mary Queen of Scots that made all hoods and hair heart-shaped. She was a very romantic lady, loved the idea of heart shapes. However, this glamorized style that we see, if you put into Google heart-shaped headdresses or attifet headdresses, this sort of seemed to come from the Victorian period when they were dressing up as Elizabethans. The original attifet was more like this coif style, see-through style, sometimes with a cap on the back of the head. And here is Queen Elizabeth with an attifet on. And here is a beautiful example of that coif style heart-shaped headdress and hairstyle called the attifée. Hope you've enjoyed another historical fashion tale all about Tudor and Elizabethan hoods. If you have, do join me again next time. Until then, bye!